Greetings humans, I'm Dale, and today I just wanted to do a start to finish of one of my images, from selecting the image all the way through to exporting the image. So yeah, let's do it. I generally start in Adobe Bridge. I use it to kind of import and index things. The advantage of Adobe Bridge is you can kind of go through and select files. You can right click, open them in Camera Raw, and then you can make adjustments here. And then see whether or not an image is working. So for example, further down, I've got this image here that I just put in Camera Raw, edited a little bit and thought, no, I don't really like that. So it's a good, quick kind of process or a way of selecting images. But the image that we're going to work on today is this one here. It is from New Zealand. And I had a fun little time walking around there. So yeah, let's jump into it. So within here, I open it within Camera Raw, and then we'll jump into Photoshop after. So the first thing I want to do is kind of work from the top to bottom. So on the right-hand side here, just working from the profile all the way through these sliders. I find working from top to bottom helps quite a lot. So profile, first things first. Probably going to go with Adobe Color. I just like the way that it looks. Let's jump into the light. Let's bring up the exposure a bit. Something I like to do with the sliders, and something that's really nice with the sliders, is you crank it more than you need and you kind of bring it back to where you want it to be. Okay, so exposure up, whites up a little bit, highlights down. What I'm doing there is whites up is bringing up the lights or the whites. Highlights down is making sure that none of those kind of highlights get blown out. So it's just bringing it down. Color, let's make it a little bit cooler. So going to that extreme and then kind of pulling back a little bit here. Yep, I like it there. Effects, I'm going to leave effects for the moment. Curves, all that kind of stuff, I'm going to leave for the moment. I am going to go into optics though. Tick, remove chromatic aberration. So that's the weird things that happen when you use a lens. I can see up here, I've got some stuff going on as well. So if we jump into the defringe, that'll get rid of these. It's a pain in the butt to do it after. So as soon as you get the raw file, it's nice kind of doing a pass of all those kind of imperfections and things, because it's easy to fix. So for example, I'm going to sample the defringe, which is sampling those blue kind of areas, and then bang, it's gone. So if I toggle that like so, it just gets rid of unwanted things and unwanted colors. Okie dokie. So next thing I'm going to do is jump into masks. So masks are very helpful in Camera Raw. So essentially what you're doing is you're selecting areas of an image and either painting on adjustments or adding like a vignette based on like a gradient, so like a circular area. But yeah, it's just helpful to make those local adjustments. So first things first, going to want to bring down the highlights in the foreground just to give it that little kind of vignette. So I'm just clicking here. So you can see up here in the mask, the area that you can see there in red is the area that's affected. But when you're looking at the mask, white reveals, black conceals. The white area is the area that is being affected. The black area is the area that isn't being affected. So it's a nice little thing to keep in the back of your mind. So I'm going to bring down the exposure a little bit. I'm trying to adjust things so the eye kind of goes from the foreground all the way through to the background. And these little adjustments help a little bit. Black, so I'll keep as is. Temperature, let's make the foreground a little bit cooler. The eye naturally goes from cool colors to warmer colors. So if we cool down the foreground, it's going to skip over that and look a little bit further in. Similar thing with saturation, you go from, the eye goes from, it likes super saturated stuff and kind of glosses over unsaturated stuff. So we can use that to our advantage. Bring that down again. Okie dokie. So that's the first mask there. Going back into lights, I'm going to bring up the blacks a little bit. Bringing up the blacks just means that the blackest blacks aren't quite super contrasty and black, and it's just like a nice feel. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of depth. So naturally in nature, the further away something is, the less contrast it has, the less texture it has, and generally it's a bit fuzzy or foggy. So let's work on that here. So I've created a new layer mask. I'm going down the right-hand side. Let's go to Effects, Texture. If it's going to be in the distance, let's bring that down. Clarity, going to bring that down. Dehaze, we can bring that down. I'm just going to click in the areas towards the back of the image, like peeking through the trees and stuff there. I'm selectively going through there. And so you can see what it's doing when you bring it to the extreme and you bring it back. But let's bring down that clarity a little bit. Texture a little bit. Dehaze. And then that's the effects. And then let's go into the temperature slider. And let's make it a little bit cooler. And exposure up a little bit. Highlights down a little bit. Cool. So that's a before and that's an after. It's just kind of adding a little bit of haze to the background. It gives the image a little bit more depth and three-dimensionality. Bring up the clarity a little bit. Dehaze a little bit. Shift it back into the... Okay, cool. Now we're going to use a radial gradient. This will kind of help have that focal point in the distance. Eyes go from dark to light, similar with saturation, all that kind of stuff. Let's just work on that there. So I'm clicking down, bringing out. Light naturally kind of spreads out in a circular motion. So using this will be good. Okay, let's bring up the whites. Let's just bring up the lights a little bit. Highlights, we're going to bring those down a little bit. Temperature. Let's make it a little bit cooler. Shadows, let's bring up those shadows. Then we're going to do something with this mask here. So we're going to click Subtract. We're going to go Brush. So if you think about light in nature, if you've got a light behind a tree, it's not going to be in front of the tree. So when you're doing an edit, you kind of need to keep that in mind so that you can work on the different areas of the image. So what I'm doing in this case is I've created a radial gradient. I boosted up the light, but the problem here is on the left-hand side, it's lit up the front of the tree, which it wouldn't do in nature. It might light up the edge of it. But yeah, so we're just getting rid of the light where it wouldn't have been. I'm doing the tree here, and you can see up here in the mask where's being affected and where's not being affected. Okie dokie. Cool. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new mask, but this time I'm going to do a luminance range. So luminosity or luminosity masks it's just it's a mask based on the representation of luminosity in an image. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting, I want to bring up the luminosity and you can see like in the edge of these ferns here. So that's a bright little highlight, and I'm going to refine that even more just here. I'm just going to play around with this little slider here. Click Show Luminance Map. What that's doing is that the red area is the area that it's kind of selecting. Go. Cool. And then I'm going to bring up the whites, so you can see it's starting to bring up those edges there. Highlights, and bringing those down again, and blacks. I'll leave blacks where they are, so there. But yeah, the main thing is the whites. And then same as before, it's bringing up the highlights in absolutely everything, including the areas of the ferns and stuff here in the foreground that we kind of want the eye to go over. So I'm just going over and creating a subtraction to that mask. Great. Cool. Done. That is a good base. Something I am going to do is I'm going to go into, go into light, bring up the blacks a little bit, jump into color, temperature. I'm going to cool it down a little bit more. But then I'm just going to go into saturation and bring that down as well. There's kind of a tendency to bring up the saturation, and as you edit an image, things seem to get more and more saturated. So every now and then it's really good to kind of work on that. So vibrance, saturation, they're down. That's great. And then we're now going to open it as an object. And so what this is going to do is we've made our edits in Adobe Bridge. We're just going to bring it into Photoshop and work on a couple of things that Photoshop seems to do a lot better than the others. So first things first, color management. If you export an image, it might look weird, and that could be related to color management. These are the color settings. I work in ProPhoto RGB. It goes sRGB, Adobe RGB 1998, and then it goes ProPhoto RGB. It's just more of a color. And I find if I work in a big space, then, that's okay. You don't want to be in a situation where you've got less than you need. So working in something like sRGB is not so good. Okie dokie. So first things first, we're going to do an autumn glow or a Gaussian blur, either or. So Command or Control J to duplicate it. I'm going to right click on this and go rasterize layer. I'm going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, 25. Yep, that's good. The number there is usually dependent on the megapixels of your camera. So if your camera is 25 megapixels, select 25. Brightness and contrast all the way up. Brightness, let's bring that up as well. It looks weird at the moment, which is fine, but we're just going to bring down that opacity, and we're going to change the what's great about this is it'll actually kind of tell you what it looks like before you're selecting it. So we're going to go screen, we're going to go overlay. Yeah, look, overlay looks good. Now, the problem with the Gaussian blur is we've lost, it's a blur. We've lost the definitions of things. We've lost all those details. So I'm going to duplicate that layer again. I'm going to right click, rasterize layer, and I'm going to go filter, other, high pass of 1 pixel, and then change the overlay mode, change the layer mode to overlay, and then stack it above. So what we've done is we've added Gaussian blur or the autumn effect, and then on top of that we've added a little bit more definition. So you can see here if I scroll in a little bit, so you can see that it's kind of blurred things a little bit, particularly on these ferns. You can see it, so it's blurred things a little bit, and then it's added a little bit more definition to it. Now, the problem with this, though, is it's added definition to absolutely everything, which we don't necessarily want because we still want that kind of blurriness. So I'm going to add a layer mask to it. White reveals, black conceals. So because it's white at the moment, it's showing absolutely everything. I'm going to go B for brush. And then I'm going to get rid of it in these areas around here where there's kind of, you can see there's like these specular highlights and things going on. Specular highlights are the shiny bits of the leaves. Cool. Just that one there. Okie dokie. I'm going to change the color a little bit as well. So if we go into here and we do a photo filter, select cooling filter 80. Density, it's going to bring that up a little bit. Bring that down. It's just adding that nice kind of little moody blue that you can sometimes get. Go. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit more dodging. So we did some dodging before in Camera Raw, but we're going to be a little bit more specific about it. Now, there's a few ways of creating luminosity masks. You can use, Camera Raw. You can use a whole bunch of things. You can jump into channels. For me, find this little plugin that you can get. I'm pretty sure you can get it for free as well. Is super duper helpful. As in, they've got a free version, but you can also pay for it as well. So I'm going to do composite. So white reveals, black conceals. So you can see there, it's kind of created a composite of the image. What I want to do is I want to select those lights. So you can see there, it's selecting these lights, and I'm pressing this a couple of times and then down, and that's adding contrast to it pretty much. And 3 little things here. Go dodge. Choosing white. It's selecting the path pretty much. So the areas that we want people to look. And then I'll do a little bit of the side of this tree as well. It's all extreme at the moment, but that is okay. Go. Cool. And bring that down a little bit there. If I toggle that off and on, you can see that it's just adding a little bit to the edges, like so. Okie dokie. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of distractions. So creating a new layer, do a little bit of clone stamping, do content aware. As you can see up here on the left-hand side, I am not particularly keen on, so I'm just selecting it, clicking it. Sometimes you can jump into the stamp, hold down Alt or Option, and then kind of click through, making sure the opacity is 100%, otherwise it looks weird. I'm not keen on sky gaps all the time. I find subconsciously the brain, when it's looking at an image and the image has sky gaps in it, that the eye just wants to go out. It thinks about the sky and kind of what's going on above that. So I try and get rid of it if I can. I'm just going through, I'm selecting areas very similar or next to the areas that I'm trying to remove stuff from. So I'm making selections quite quickly. Like so. Just kind of roughly going through. Look, you could spend a lot of time doing this, which is fine, but there's usually other images to edit. So take as long or as short of a period of time doing this as you want. Okie dokie. So that's most of the sky gaps. Like so. We're going to jump back into Camera Raw. I'm going to hold down Shift, right click on that all, and go Convert to Smart Object. Then go Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Because the blacks are here, but I want to bring them up a little bit more. So we go to Lights, go to Blacks, bring the blacks up, and then we bring the shadows up as well. Blacks down. It's just kind of like the balance between being able to see everything and not being able to see everything, like so. Contrast. Do anything with contrast there. Whites up a little bit more. And we go, okay, cool. So I've just kind of adjusted what's going around on the right-hand side, and the left-hand side, and all the sides. I'm just kind of, you can see in before and after, I'm just bringing up the shadows so there's a little bit more definition in what's going on there. Now I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to right-click on it and go rasterize layer. That'll create a stamp of it. Now I'm going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, like so. This time we're going to bring it down a little bit more. And there we go. So we have a stamped layer that is blurry. I'm going to create a new layer on top of that. Select a red color. Now, something that I found really helpful for getting rid of distractions is to blur the image, to go through and select the areas of the image that are sticking out or that have the highest amount of luminosity, and then turning off that blur layer and then going through and cloning it. So for example, smack bang here, something's going on there. You can see up here, there's an area there that's a bit bright, area there that's a bit bright, something funky going on there. It looks like there's two little bright patches here, something going on there. Just going around the perimeters, like so. Something going on there. I'm just looking for areas that are kind of distracting to the overall image. And when you blur it, it's the equivalent of like when you squint at something. Okie dokie. Cool. So we can get rid of that layer that's underneath it. And we have a big red areas that tell us where things need to get cloned out. So I'm going to toggle off that layer. And then I'm going to go through and work on each of these. So creating a new layer there, going into the clone stamp, not the clone stamp, the spot healing brush. So obviously that's a signpost. It is no longer. Dokie over here as well. That's obviously a patch of sky that I missed before. Looks like there's a leaf going on. A little bit too bright there. Oh, yep. Specular highlights. Is that right? Yep, going on there. A bit more little weird little fern going on. Here as well. I'll leave that as is. So it makes sense that there'll be a little bit of light. I can see something weird going on there. And then fern in the foreground. Look, I'll leave the fern as is. A little bit more up there in the corners. And then we can maybe get rid of that fern as well. And that one as well. Cool. Now, I'm add a little bit more punch to it and darken it down a little bit as well. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go Command or Control Delete. I'm going to fill it with black. Opacity, well, let's change it to soft light first. The opacity, I'm going to change it to 10%. It's darkening down the image. And I want to do that again. So I'm selecting that layer and going Command or Control J to duplicate it. I'm selecting both those layers, putting them into a folder, and I'm applying a mask. White reveals, black conceals, B for brush, making sure the brush is black. And then what I'm going to do is, currently it's affecting everything. I'm going to invert that mask. So Command or Control I, and that'll invert it if it's selected. B for brush. You can go X to toggle between the two colors. And then I'm going to darken areas like so. The areas that we don't want people to look necessarily, because we want them to push their eye through the frame like so. So you can see that's a before and an after. It's just adding a little bit more of a vignette. And then B for brush. I'm going to select a color from here. So holding down Alt or Option to select it. So more towards the warm, yellows. B for brush. Make that big. Click. Click. Bring the opacity down. I don't like the way that looks, but that's okay. I'm going to fill it instead of yellow. I'm going to fill it with white. So selecting white there, holding down Command while clicking on it will make a selection. Go X, it'll switch these around, and when you do that, the one that's kind of towards the background, you go Command or Control Delete, and that'll fill it in. And or Control D to deselect. Cool. Yep, that seems to be working. I want to add a little bit more depth to it, add a little bit more fog. Another way of doing it in here is creating a new layer, selecting a color that is kind of like gray, B for brush, making it smaller or bigger with the opening and closing brackets. The opacity, I'm going to make that maybe 2%. The layer mode, I'm going to change that to hard light. And I'm holding down Alt or Option with the scroll wheel to kind of come in here. And then what I'm going to do is similar to what I did before. I'm going to kind of click. Click in those background areas. So it's very subtle, but it does make quite a big difference. Like so. Lots of little clicks, maybe some here. Selecting these areas because they're in the background, like so. Okie dokie. There we go. Look, I think I'm probably happy with where that is at the moment. This is kind of like a quick overview. I'd probably go through and edit it and take more time doing it, but I'm kind of happy with where this is at the moment. Now, in terms of exporting, I'm going to... It's this weird... Here we go. So I think it's Command Option Shift E. Yep, Command Option Shift E. Or Control Option Shift E, that'll create a stamp of all the layers that are underneath. I generally have all my edits here and then a stamp layer on top. And then what I can do with this stamp layer is I've got a plugin called Web Sharpener. It's free. I'm pretty sure it's in the Adobe app marketplace or something like that. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But yeah, the settings are, this is for web, so final size 2048 pixels on the longest size, standard sharpening. I literally press play. What it'll do is you can see here on the right hand side, it essentially runs a script that resizes your image, and it means that when you're posting it on places like Instagram and stuff, it's done sharpening. It's accounted for the way that certain things happen when it comes to like compression and stuff when you're exporting it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Look, I could go into depth with a whole bunch of little bits and pieces in there, and I probably will in future videos. But that's just kind of an overview of what I do, from getting the image all the way up to exporting the image. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. Hope you got something out of that. Let me know in the comments below if you did. And as always, like, subscribe, all those good things, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.